This is a yarn that Claib Jones spins in his autobiography about how his men were able to capture, bury, and resurrect Confederate General Applejack Barrel and turn him into a general for the Union that helped to inspire the troops. Colonel Lilly ordered Jones with a posse of men to Letcher County, Kentucky. It took them 2 days to reach Whitesburg. Once they reached Sand Lick, they were beset upon by rebels who retreated towards Virginia after the first few volleys. Running after their quarry, they spotted a wagon crossing a point above town and seized the wagon from the rebels that was full of dried apples and applejack. They filled their canteens full of the tasty brandy and toasted to their new capture, Confederate General Applejack Barrel. They decided to bury the general beside the road, and the spirits that they had partaken of moved John Smith of their party to conduct a moving funeral of Confederate General Applejack Barrel. They emptied the wagon of all the apples and filled it with fence posts and burned it. Later, they captured Mr. Sturtevant, that told them that the rebels would return. Jones then stationed his men at the gap below the mill dam and waited for them to return. They waited until the rebels had passed by them before they opened fire. They chased them back across the Virginia line. After the rebels had been dispatched once and for all, Jones and his men went back to the grave of Confederate General Applejack Barrel, and miraculously he was resurrected and convinced of the error of his ways. He was then persuaded to serve as a Union general and brought back to camp, whereupon he was able to inspire the troops to stay for a couple of days of merriment. Mr. Sturtevant became known as Jones' pet rebel, and they played poker with the men and won all of the money in the camp and courted lots of ladies from the area. After this, Mr. Sturtevant swore not to pick up any arms against the Union soldiers and was allowed to return home. The rebel camp was pretty disheartened at the thought of losing the general in such an undignified manner, and to learn that he had turned coat and now ran with the Union army. As soon as Colonel Cottle had learned that Jones had whipped the men who guarded the general, he took his men and faded into the woods of eastern Kentucky. So ends the yarn of the life, death, and miraculous resurrection of General Applejack Barrel. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for joining us for Mountain Tidbits. Thank you for your support as we bring to you the history of the Appalachian Mountains, as we are discovering the mysteries of Appalachian history.